All right.
This is an audience participation panel.
You will be graded. No. So, welcome to Allies in the Community at HavenCon 3. This was a panel that we did our first year and decided to revive because there's some important issues to be talked about. My name is Alicia St. John. You can find me running around here. I'm HavenCon staff. And it's my pleasure to moderate this lovely panel, and I'll let them introduce themselves, and then we'll jump right into notes, guys.
Hi, I'm Shannon Brio, I guess. Yeah, I don't know what else I'm supposed to say.
What do you do?
What do I do? I am a YouTuber sometimes, by day, a songstress by night, I guess, and that's it. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mia. I do cosplay, which you would know from today, but I swear I didn't. I am a blogger and podcaster and occasional YouTuber. My website's Exomia, and I talk about cosplay and geek lifestyle.
Hi, my name is Cassandra Lancaster. I am a little nerd and geek. I work at UT, where I work on one of their pride and equity associations, working within that community. And I was found because I recently spoke about my experiences as a trans woman at Feminist.
Not that kind of panel. My name is Catherine Gonzalez. I'm the Operations and Programs Director at Out Youth, a 27-year-old nonprofit organization based here in Austin, Texas that serves youth of all sexual orientations and gender identities aged 12 to 23, and soon, hopefully, a lot younger than that and a lot older than that if I get my way, which I always do.
Awesome. I'm actually just going to use my outdoor voice because I
That
believe
sounds
everyone
great.
can hear me, correct? All right. But y'all can use the microphone. We'll split that between y'all. So I think this panel is really important this year because, in particular, our political climate has changed. And in Texas in particular, we've had introductions of things like bathroom bills and some increased activity from ICE and whatnot. And I think it's important for us to talk about ways that we can help support each other within the community and from outside the community and focus on those marginalized groups that are under threat right now. So, Catherine, I know when we were talking about like brainstorming things, you wanted to discuss how to be an active ally for people. Do you have?
I do, and it's interesting that this comes up today because I was interviewed 3 times on Thursday, didn't know that I was going to be, but all answering the same question. How do I be an ally? And the first time was with a high school group, and anytime I speak to youth, I always start the allyship conversation the same way. So we're going to do it here. Raise your hand if you've read the Magic School Bus books or watched the television show. Perfect. So, Miss Frizzle is known for saying, take chances, make mistakes, get messy. You cannot do allyship if you are not willing to get a little messy. Like they taught me in Taekwondo school all those years ago. God, Lord, 22 years ago. Teaching us how to defend ourselves against certain types of attacks. And the teacher said, you know, what do you do? And 10-year-old us answered a bunch of different ways, and she said, no. The first thing you have to be ready for is for them to land that punch. Because if you are not mentally prepared for that, when it happens, you're going to be so distracted by that that you can't keep focusing over here. So I approach allyship the same way, that I'm willing to take chances and make those mistakes, and when things get messy, to own up to the mess that I've created and figure out how to clean that up, while also knowing that when I go into these fights, I'm not going to come out unscathed. And then the extension of that I talked about with the adults was allyship can be as easy as showing up. I testified against SB 6 and I went and testified against HB 2899. And both times I had this experience of encountering cisgender, straight, white women who showed up to register their opposition, but felt like they didn't have anything to contribute to the conversation, that their place was not in front of that committee. And I said, no, you have probably zero stake in any of this. The fact that you showed up as somebody who they will see has no stake in anything that they're considering, your voice is actually louder. And it was very interesting to me, especially at SB 6 hearing, that just weeks before, thousands of people, thousands of women marched on Austin. Yet none of them seemed to show up when me as a trans woman needed that help, needed that support. And it felt really lonely and it felt really bad. So it can be just as simple as showing up and telling your stories.
And so support's really important, and I understand that can be hard for allies who, they don't feel like they have a place there, right? And that's where we were talking a little bit about like safe spaces and how they can navigate those and deal with the faux pas or the learning curve as it is to deal with the community, and not just the LGBT community, but the like POCs or different gender expressions, like having to go and learn all of that can be daunting.
Mm-hmm.
Tessa, do you have any tips?
So the one experience that I've had trying to incorporate allyship in the community from people who feel maybe a little more distant from it has to do with the fact that there is a learning curve. There's a gap of knowledge that they feel unable or just sort of intimidated by because it's an experience that they don't have. So one way that I like to kind of proselytize for, to try and bridge that gap is just by having conversations. It seems like a really small step, but there's a lot of power in being able to sit down with somebody and just talk about your experience. Talk about the ways that being someone in the LGBT community or being somebody, being a person of color, being an undocumented person, or having an intersectionality of these identities. When you sit down and you explain about your experiences, people, can put themselves in your shoes a little bit. That increases their stake in the topic. That decreases that gap of knowledge. And one of the ways that this can be really difficult is when somebody has a preconceived notion. We all have them. Biases are not particular to any group of people. They are pervasive and consistent, and they're just part of, the human dilemma. We fail both as people within the community and as allies when we don't talk about them or challenge them or just air them out. Especially because a lot of the people who have these preconceived notions can actually be sensitive about them. They can be, they can think that there are certain things that go along with being a trans person or a gay person or an undocumented person. And they, as someone who don't live those experiences, can have a hard time wanting to talk about that. They don't want to, make the faux pas. They don't want to, be jumped on. They don't want to be attacked. And so that's why it's really important to create these safe spaces. Now, there's two sides to creating a safe space. One is, sort of the disclaimer that you are never expected, required, nor should you be expected or required to educate somebody. That doesn't have to be your place if you don't want it to be. And that's important because, this isn't your burden to bear solely. But the other side of that is, should you feel comfortable sharing your experiences? Should you feel comfortable talking to people about their preconceived notions? it's really, really important to let people talk about what they think about you if you are comfortable doing so. And that's a really vulnerable place to be for you and for them, because they're risking saying something that will upset you. They're risking coming off as ignorant or uneducated or any of those different things, so that they can see whether what they think matches with the reality, so that they can actually open their eyes and look at that knowledge gap and look at, you know, what has been missing from their ideas. And it's vulnerable for you because you have to sit there and sort of be the balance board for this person's viewpoints, perspectives, and ideas. And so safe spaces in this more small, conversational, personal aspect are really, really powerful, and are just some of the smallest but most consistent ways that we can be allies, by allowing conversational safe spaces as well as big safe spaces like this panel.
Mia,
Yes, me.
you have a platform with which to reach out and like talk to your viewers and readers. Have you found that being more open about your sexual identity has helped bring in allies, or?
It's kind of weird because I'm bi, but my long-term partner is a guy, and I feel like maybe it's more that people just don't recognize that part of me, rather than I have a lot of people that are allies in the community. But I think I try to share my stories so that they know that, you know, my sexuality is valid, even though my long-term partner is a guy. And, you know, I try to, like I say partner, and people always ask me, why do you say partner? And I try to say, well, it's gender neutral. I like that it's a more serious term than saying boyfriend, because people don't respect that as much, but we've been together for like 7 years. And I like that if I am talking to someone else about their partner, they don't have to out themselves as whatever sexuality, or even have me assume, oh, you're with someone of the opposite gender, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So I try to have those little conversations and do the best I can in that way, but I think more than anything, it's just not something that people necessarily associate with me. If that's...
Yeah,
that's kind of a sad answer.
No. So it's like, it's one of those things, it's hard to just kind of exist and not have that part erased from you in like the cishet world.
Well, and I erase it myself constantly. Like I'm on this panel and I was like, oh God, why am I on this panel? And I'm like, wait, you're bi. Or like, I was like, the other day I was like, wow, you sure like RuPaul's Drag Race a lot for a straight girl. And I was like, wait a sec. Like, it's just really easy for me to just even erase myself, and it's a constant struggle.
Just put the pressure on you. So you are the ally on this.
Yeah.
So hello. So
No pressure, sorry.
yeah. My question for you is, what do you find, because you do work very closely with a lot of LGBTQ people.
Sure.
What do you find is challenging? What do you wish that you could like impart onto like your fellow allies?
I don't know. I'm trying to think of like what I find challenging. I think that we've said like this idea of like knowing everything, because I think as an ally, what I want to do is like, I just want to help, right? Like that's it. And so for me, I don't think I'm an expert at being an ally. I just think that my job is to listen as much as possible and to have as many conversations as possible. And then the other day I was talking to my parents and they said something and I like jumped in and was like, hey, no, sorry, excuse you. And like I'm out of the house, so I guess I don't hear, and I feel like I don't want to say I live in an echo chamber, but my friends are all like allies, and so I feel like I don't have as many conversations that I feel the need to jump in and say something because they said something problematic, because I think my friends are all actively working as well. And so when I said something to my parents, though, I was like, wow, I had a moment where I was like, I am such an ally. I was like, look at me stopping that problematic language. Wow, good job, Shannon, like whatever. But no, yeah, I don't think that I'm an expert. So whenever you were like, Shannon, can you be on this panel? I was like, I mean, I could try, but for me, I just want to make sure that I am always open and listening and showing that I'm trying really hard. And so I work with students on UT as well, which is why I have like a moment. And I work actually in the orientation program. We welcome thousands of new students. And so for us, one of our biggest messages is like, we're welcoming like 15,000 new people to this campus. There's so many different types of people in this world. You have to be as inclusive as possible. So I think that my ally work is really like working with my students to be like, this is how you can be more accepting and work on your own language and work on your responsibility as a human being to be more accepting. I don't know what's the most challenging thing. It's just like trying to be as much of an ally as possible.
Like I find, so the family discussions are always interesting because
That's a whole other.
Yeah, that's all other thing.
like because like it should hypothetically start at home, right? Like if you can educate your parents of other generations, even though they're the hippie generation, they should know better at this point. That's just me. But like it's kind of difficult and daunting sometimes to approach people and be like, this is problematic.
Yeah.
And we help on that. But I mean, you're also part of another marginalized group, and so like POCs have difficulty especially in nerdy, run geek spaces, right? So I think it's important to realize that there are like, as much as we want people to be allies from the outside, they need to be within the community as well. Like, we need to have everyone's backs for any marginalized group, right? That's the goal, I believe.
Yeah.
Am I missing anything before we open the questions? Discussion.
I just wanted to say, like, I guess it's hard, like, with parents. I wanted to share this story, is that my mom won't say the word bisexual. So she's a very supportive person, and I think she intends to be supportive. So like one time I was visiting, she lives in Houston, and it was Houston Pride Weekend. And she takes the newspaper and she's like, look, she points it, it's Pride Weekend. But she won't like say, like, I thought of this because of you. Like, she tries to be supportive, but she doesn't quite get there. Which I just think is really interesting.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
the word
it's
is
a
the
little,
bad
it's a
thing.
little taboo there.
They have different lines too. Like whenever I came out as transgender to my mother, she took it really hard at first, which I didn't expect, and then over time kind of like gradually grew into the idea and became very, very supportive. And then ultimately just never had any issue with it and has accepted me as her daughter since then. And then a little while afterwards, I'm also polyamorous, and I came out to her as that identity, and she stopped short. She wasn't able to open up to that with the same kind of acceptance and openness, and was like, don't tell the rest of the family. You know, like people have different barriers and lines based upon, where where their history and where their parents came from. So, there's always a little bit more to be done.
I mean, all I would add to that is that I'm definitely that one in the family that, because I came out as gay at 14, came out as genderqueer at 19, tried to come out as trans several times and then finally did it. Now I'm poly, I'm HIV positive. Like, there's all of these things about my life story that I keep having to come out about, and I'm definitely that person in the family that is like, oh Lord, what is she going to put us through?
Do they now like
Like, so I'm gonna borrow a joke from Ellen.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure my mom is sitting at home just like waiting for that day that the slippery slope actually happens, and I bring home a goat and I'm like, Mom, Dad, I'd like to meet Billy.
He's my partner, and I love
He's
him
my
very much.
So,
It's a supportive relationship.
like, really pushing that generation from my end.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think my mom is probably more okay with me being bi and having a male partner because it's not an issue she ever really has to directly face if she doesn't want to. But then, like, if it was something like, oh no, I'm a lesbian, or oh no, I'm trans, like, I don't know how they would deal with that. Like, I do have that sort of bi privilege. Like, as much as we're talking about, oh, you're the ally on the panel. No, we're all the ally on the panel, right? Yeah, so I have to be an ally to the trans community just as much as I want people to be an ally to bisexual people.
So this is gonna be weird, but I am gonna bring in Chad Griffin, who is the president of HRC, which is not normally an organization that I would bring into the room. But heard him speak recently, and he said, you know, the unique thing that he sees about the work that he does is that working within LGBT advocacy, that because LGBT identity goes across all the spectrums and there's all this intersectionality, like when they tried to pass the Muslim ban, like HRC was there. Or when they try to attack women, like HRC, because there are women who are LGBT. And it really got me, it almost flipped my own understanding, like, of course I'm gonna show up as a member of this community for my community, and we'll show up for all these other communities, and I'm like, but no, that's also my good. So it was this huge mind-opening shift that I thought I'd already made. But
Well, and my favorite thing to come out of the March for Women when no one showed up for the bathroom bill was trans women are women. And I think for some people that is a shift that they haven't made yet. They categorize like man, woman, trans woman, gender, whatever, you know? And I think that's something that people have to realize is like, no, like they're under like trans women are under the woman umbrella and you should keep this.
And this is low-key my agenda here, with the panel being all women, is that intersectionality is the only way that we will ever make progress, like, period. We have to be intersectional in our feminism, in our advocacy, in our protection of everyone, like, full-on stuff, right? So, like, just this morning, I read this article about a group of white gay men who had been supporting Donald Trump. And they held a dinner, and the whole transcript of their dinner is them just laying into transgender people and just like making disgusting, horrible remarks. And they have the nerve to call themselves part of the community. To me, that is so damaging. Like, I can't even wrap my head around it. I would not welcome them, like, at all. And I feel bad about that because I should. They do have, like, you know, white gay men still have a lot of issues to deal with and a lot of things to, you know, hurdle, but
they still have white privilege, they still have male privilege.
But like, what do you do in that situation when we are faced with people that don't support us, but still want to claim the community?
I mean, that's where that conversation piece comes in a lot because, you know, one part about it is there's just going to be some people who just who won't accept you, who won't accept identities that they don't understand, who don't want to take the effort to kind of meet you halfway and try to see it from your perspective. And all that you can do for those people is fight them in the legal system, and if you feel comfortable and able, keep your door open to them to come have a dinner and a conversation, because that's how you bring people over to your side. You know, do you want to add something?
So it's reminding me a lot of what I tell my kids all the time, which is, you know, I get a lot of youth who want to be advocates coming into my office and saying, how do I change my parents' hearts and minds? Or how do I change my family's hearts and minds? Or how do I change the hearts and minds of the community? And my answer is always the same. It's not your job, and it's not your place. Just like I'm not going to have my heart and mind changed by people who think that there is something fundamentally wrong with me and that I'm going to spend all of eternity dancing my ass off in hell, which I will.
It'll be fun, we'll all see you there.
There's no
But that doesn't mean that that I can't make that choice to sit down with them and have that conversation. And if they choose to take that journey from where they are to where I hope they will go, I can choose to walk that with them or not. It's entirely up to me. They have to change themselves in their life, because the only person in this life that I have control over is me.
Yeah.
But to add to that, this most recent election made me realize that maybe I was writing off more people than I should have. Because if like 53% of white women voted for Trump, I know that that's like half of the people from my hometown. And I said, you know, they're not going to change their minds, so I'm not going to waste my energy on them. But then the results started coming in, and I immediately was like, oh, I didn't do enough. Like, what did I do? I talked to other people who didn't support Donald Trump about how much we didn't support him, and thought, oh, it's not gonna happen, and didn't have those conversations. Like, I talked to my mom, she still voted for him. So like, what am I supposed to do? It's like, I think there's a balance there between, you don't have to be that person if you don't have the energy or the time or the ability, but if you can be, and always keep your door open and keep fighting, even for the people you don't think their minds will change.
It comes back to show up.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good piece.
We do have a question.
I was assisting. Hi. First of all, awesome for talking about intersectionality. Thank you. I'm a Black bisexual woman in an interracial relationship, so I have to have a lot of conversations. And I think the mistake I made is because my partner, who is white, is so understanding, but I projected her onto the rest of like the world. So when terms like white feminism came up and Trump and things like that, and her whole family voted for Trump. So I kind of had to step back like, okay, this is a thing that we have to work through. And I was projecting, I'm like, she's super understanding. And when I go on my POC like topics that she will like never understand completely, because she grew up in a wealthy community that had like maybe 3 Black people in her high school. So when we had those conversations, she's super open. And then I kind of watched the rest of the world not be as open as her. And so I was like, okay, so I actually have to like research white feminism and what that means. And 53%. And I'm like, wow, but that can't be anybody I know. And it turned out, yes, it was.
Yeah.
Absolutely it was. And all your talks about self-care and things I took into account this year. And I'm like, I have to step back from these people. And I've tried to have these conversations, and I always put the blame on me, like maybe I didn't say enough. Maybe that's why they're not like getting my point. And then I had to realize they don't want to get my point. They don't want to listen, and I have to like step back. And it's been great because I'm taking care of myself more, but it's interesting explaining terms like that to her, because she didn't have the same upbringing and the same education. And it's so funny, we do a diversity panel, and one of the things she says is, I'm so tired of seeing myself, I want new stories. And I'm like, I just want to see me, period.
Yeah.
And so we want 2 different things, but they're like the same goal at the end, but it's 2 different points of view. She's like, I'm so tired of seeing, cute white girl. And I'm like, I just want to see plus size Black queer woman who doesn't die or get pushed to the side. And I kind of stopped. I was like, that's kind of amazing that we both want 2 different things, but they're the same because it's the same result, but we want